So the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, which just took place this particular weekend or the last weekend, first race in 4 months, and Gargi and me were obviously very excited because there's been no race because of a scheduling issue really for 4 weeks. Who has a break this early in the season? But then the race came. It wasn't that great. I mean, if you've seen our previous debate, you'd remember that we did kind of bag on it a little bit. And leave aside the race, even the one thing that Formula One had been hyping up all weekend, which was the new and improved sprint, a standalone event, more stakes, more points, it also fell flat.
Yeah, I know. I think the only people, not even people, I think it was just the F1 management that was hyping it up, because I don't think any of the fans were happy with it.
Yeah, I think I'll be fair. Like, if I have to be really fair, what I did kind of like was the sprint shootout.
Okay.
Because that was really quick and it left no scope for error, because normally what happens with quali is you'll have 1 run, then 2 runs, the third run towards the end. Here it was like you had space for 2 runs at most. And on a street circuit where there's walls, one slight miscalculation means your tires are gone, your car is gone. What happened to, say, Logan Sargent, we saw. That was exciting, but beyond that, like, I was kind of underwhelmed, truth be told.
I mean, when we're looking at the more technical things, I guess it's pretty clear that Formula One just wants it to be like a standalone event to get, garner more views, more tickets, more sales, whatever it is. But when we talk about, the race, I think it's just taking away the attention from the actual main event, because I see that with something like a sprint happening, what it's doing is it's creating 2 similar events. Because with qualifying and free practice and whatever else, there's difference in all the formats.
Exactly.
But this, we have 2 similar events, and it's just kind of dividing my attention.
And before we go forward, we were actually so excited to talk about this. We did want to tell you that the topic of today's debate, as you probably guessed, is that does F1 really need to do away with the sprint race altogether? And I'll be honest, I remember when it was first introduced, and bear in mind, because it's kind of gone through so many phases. When it first came about, it was supposed to be like this thing for qualifying. Then, okay, at least theoretically, in some ways it made sense, because like, okay, great, that's a different way of determining the grid. Now that you've made it a standalone event, it just seemed to lack any pizzazz whatsoever. And I'm sorry to use that term, but obviously, in Formula One, in motorsport, the show is very important. And this added nothing. Nothing whatsoever. It's like a mini race before the actual race, with no stakes.
Except for like money for...
Yeah, I mean, that's I mean, let's be fair. Let's call a spade a spade. This is okay, we get it in today's day and age, all sports are commercialized. This is over-commercialization.
Yeah.
What was the point? I mean, who's, really, if you do a poll within the Formula One fan base right now, who's really being like, the long races are so exciting. We want a short version of this. No one. Literally no one.
Yeah.
And by the way, even as a qualifying mode, it had its flaws, because again, it's not something you can do with every circuit. I mean, it wouldn't work out in, say, Monaco, where overtaking is legitimately impossible.
Yeah.
So again, you're limited by only being able to use it in certain tracks. And then on top of that, it's not working. The most important thing, what is the lifeblood of any sport? Fans. If the fans aren't responding.
I haven't met or talked to us or even read on Twitter or whatever social media. I've not come across a single fan who's liked F1 Sprint.
Exactly, and with good reason, because again, it adds nothing. When you look at say how it's done in, say, Formula 2. In Formula 2, it's a standalone event, but it's been that way for years.
Yes.
So fans are accustomed to it. Similarly, when it comes to, say, F1, the format that it's in right now, most people are accustomed to the format that, okay, in Friday practice, you're not getting anything game-changing, but it's an important time for teams to kind of tweak their setups.
Exactly, and I hate that the sprint is taking away the free practices. It's taking away the FP3, I think. And that's because, Baku especially, since we're talking about Baku, all these teams had their upgrades in line, and they were about to, launch those updates, and that really affected, I think, the teams, because your free practice is being taken away.
Exactly. Although, I will say this, a lot of drivers have said in the past that you don't need 3 practice sessions.
You don't.
But again, can't they come up with something better than this? Even if you don't need, and by the way, in F2 and F3, you only have 1 free practice. But at least that's been the format for years. Here, you're changing something that kind of worked that was not really broken, but which you're trying to fix anyway, or rather I'd say it's a gob of fixing, and you're trying to commercialize things needlessly. It just makes no sense to me. And honestly, I agree with you. I haven't seen a single person who's like, hey, you know what, this sprint stuff is really exciting. Yeah, I think the only exciting sprint, and this is also partially my own biases, 2021 Brazil. When Lewis had that massive grid penalty, so he qualified high, then dropped all the way down because there was that whole wing issue, and then ran through the grid. That was the only entertaining sprint. But even there, all that really proved was that the Mercedes car was really fast.
And
who didn't know that by that point?
I don't understand having an event just for points. I think that's still taking away from the main event.
I mean, you have an event for points. It's called the race.
It's the race, the main thing.
Actual race. Who needs a sprint thereafter? I just don't understand where this is coming from. And again, I get it. Okay, you want a weekend with high stakes. I'm sure there are more things they can do than this. Maybe if you want to increase the stakes, try and ensure that, maybe one of the practice sessions, these teams have to kind of, bring in a rookie driver, which by the way is now a thing, because nowadays you have these minimum number of outings for rookie drivers. That's why last year you saw someone like a Nick De Vries drive on the grid, and a lot of others, even Logan Sargent for Williams, if I'm not wrong, then he ended up getting the seat. Maybe do something like that. Try and get in more rookie drivers. Say that, one session is mandatory for all your reserve drivers. Every team has a reserve driver. Let the reserve drivers go out there and get some miles under their belt. Let them get some work on the track, because otherwise most of them are only restricted to simulator work, or in the rare occasion that something happens, you're filling in. Something like that. Anything. I think innovation is good, but not innovation for innovation's sake.
And I don't get it. Taking away a free practice, which is fine, a free practice in itself is okay, but then taking away free practice and adding two other events, a shootout and then a sprint, is just overcomplicating everything. It's already, F1 is a very complicated sport. It's not easy for new people to come along and just start watching.
Exactly.
If you're someone who doesn't understand F1 and you're just watching the race, you'll need at least 6 months to get your head around it.
In fact, the irony of it is that F1 right now is experiencing a surge of popularity. But what is the main reason for that?
The drivers.
Not just the drivers, the behind the scenes drama. Drive to survive.
Drive to survive. Yes, of course. And it also has to do with a lot of, the stars, the Danny Ricks and Charles and Lando.
And dare I say, Gunther Steiner.
Oh yeah.
That potty-mouthed man has become very popular thanks to that show. I can't say a lot of the things he says. Wish I could.
And all these, I don't want to say this out loud, but I am going to say this out loud. The Drive DTS fans are basically just drama-loving fans, and I wish that these fans would turn into F1 fans,
like full-time F1 fans.
Who understand the sport like we do. But then it's just so hard to get around the sport.
Exactly, and the sport is a complicated one. Let's be frank, it's not. As someone who I would say I've been following the sport since the early 2000s. It's only in the last 4 or 5 years that I've really had an understanding of what makes the cars tick. What is the difference between a lot of the technical factors that come into play. And it's a lot of technical factors, and it's okay to not understand because it's very scientific. But let's appreciate the sport for what it is rather than trying to sell it as something that is not. And that's I think what the sprint is doing. You're trying to make it like I think the sprint, and I'll use a cricket analogy here, they're trying to make it cricket's version of T20. Yes.
Oh my god.
But there's one difference. T20 was needed to add some injectment or inject some excitement into cricket.
Because it was a long form.
Exactly. A Formula 1 race is like 2 hours. I'm sorry, that's not long. If you think 2 hours is long, I dare you to sit through a 5-day test match. That is long. But Formula 1's already a 2-odd-hour sport, maybe 3 hours if you combine it over the weekend.
Happens for a few months, only on the weekends, and I don't think fans who casual fans only watch the race or some part of the race.
No, a lot of them will watch quali too. I mean, let's be fair.
But they're not going to sit around and watch the whole 4-day show. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I don't understand.
Easier for people to get along.
So I think, exactly. And Masada, you finish your point. Finish.
If you're targeting viewership or you're targeting money or more people to get along, make it easier for them to catch on.
Exactly. Right now, what you're doing is making it tougher, you're making it complicated, and what's perhaps worse, you're irritating the traditional F1 fans, those who have been around for decades.
Since Schumi and Senna.
I've been the Schumi since Schumi. Thanks, I feel old. Any which way, I think this was one debate that didn't require much debate because all of us were on the same page, and by all of us, I mean her and me. What do you guys think? Well, you can let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, if you want to stay tuned to more such, let's say, debates, discussions, analysis that we do, please, please, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with your friends, tap the bell icon, leave us a comment as well. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Download the AajTak app and stay tuned for more such debates from Sports Today. That's all for now from me, Shane, and from Gargi. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.